If you could go into any professional locker room and have the room for a moment, regardless of what sport it is, what advice are you giving these guys?
So I've actually done this. I've had the opportunity to do this. And the one thing I tell people right off the bat, because every professional athlete tends to be pretty excited about their girlfriend, the wag, whatever she may be, or he may be, whatever the case may be. Obviously, there's a lot of female professional athletes as well. You got to know the divorce statistics. And the fact of the matter is, the national divorce statistics for regular people, Joe's off the street, is just under 50%. I think it's actually about 47% for first-time marriages. For professional athletes, for a lot of reasons, that number is way higher. It's closer to about 70%. And of that 70%, so you're batting about 50% higher than the general public. 50% of those divorces will come within 1 year of your retirement from your sport. And that is a stunning number. And so, a lot of these athletes have beat the odds to become pros. And a lot of them think that because they've done that, they're going to beat this statistic as well. But as you know, you can't beat statistics, and statistics are independent of one another. And so just because you beat the odds to become a pro athlete doesn't mean you're going to beat the odds of things like bankruptcy and divorce. You've got to recognize those numbers, and you've got to plan for them, because otherwise you're in to take a pretty brutal financial hit.
Okay, well, let's talk about why that percentage is so much higher and why it happens inside of that first year. I'm sure you have some ideas on why that is.
I mean, your lifestyle obviously changes quite a bit from the time you were playing to the time you retire. When you're playing, you're a high-income earner. You're separated from your family all throughout the season. You may be home for a few days, but then you're off for pretty long periods. And so you don't have a traditional family structure where you're sort of seeing your family every night and then leaving in the morning. That's just not how it is. And then in the off season, it tends to be very sort of perfect, right? Because you're trying to get as much as you can in during that off season. You're going on tremendous vacations. You're doing everything you can with the kids. It's just an amazing opportunity. But that's not real life, and that's not the real life that most people live. Once you retire, you go back to being, for most people, sort of a normal person living a normal life. But that's not the relationship you built while you were playing. And so for a lot of people, I think that's a really, really tough transition, whether for the athlete who may be experiencing things like depression from not being able to play anymore and missing their teammates in the locker room and really having to deal with this new lifestyle, to the spouse who now all of a sudden has got you around all the time. And that just wasn't the deal while you were playing. And I think that sort of sets the table for a situation where divorce is really prevalent.
Well, I've always made the joke about these Legends tours that a lot of these retired players go on is more so to be like the wife is going, get out, I'm not used to this, right? Rather than a whole, I miss playing hockey. It's more so to kind of keep that structure intact.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of these guys, if you've made enough money, don't have to work. And I find that some of them, the plan is just, hey, I'm going to play golf all the time. But that plan crumbles after a while pretty quickly because you don't want to play golf all the time. And you just don't have that outlet and you don't have that passion like you did for the sport that you've played since you were 2 years old. And it's really hard mentally for guys.
Is it to some degree like the woman that you married sees you now post-retirement, all the success, all the accomplishments, that's why she wanted to be with you in the first place, because she wanted the best. She got the best, in the words of Kiss. But now that you've retired, it's like, well, that's not the man I married. But you're sitting on the couch, you're golfing, you're not in pursuit of excellence.
It's the different phases of life. For us regular schmoes, that transition comes at age 65 or 70 or 75. But for these athletes, it could be at 30. And all of a sudden, you worked so hard on this one thing to reach the pinnacle, the 1% of 1% of 1% to be a pro athlete, and then it's just over. And the paychecks end. And now you've got to find that next thing at age 30. When you have focused 100% of your efforts to be a pro, that's really hard.
I've had a lot of friends who have played across numerous different sports, and they do have pension plans set up, but a lot of those don't kick in until 55, sometimes 65, and sometimes it's a partial pension, sometimes it's a full pension. When it comes to the litigation of the divorce, separation, whatever it may be, that comes into play too, I'm assuming.
It does. So you can get a divorce decree that says half of the pension eventually will come to that former spouse. So that's all on the table.
And that comes under the guise of anything that's accumulated financially during the relationship is on the table.
And in some cases, here in Canada, you've got the Family Law Act. And so you could have cohabitation rights and all sorts of other things. I mean, when we do prenuptial agreements for some of these guys and women, we've got to look at all the various jurisdictions, especially when you're talking about an NBA or NHL player, where you're talking about different states, different provinces, 2 different countries. Those are pretty impactful documents. And it's one of those things where you talk about getting lawyers involved. You got this prenup that's this thick because we've got to talk about all the different cities where you could get traded to or sign, where we've got to account for those laws. And it's brutal.
What exactly is this this Families Act that you mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, so if your girlfriend lives with you and you're carrying on as a family, even if you're not married, that can entitle your boyfriend, girlfriend to certain rights, including financial rights.
Is there a period of time that has to go by?
I don't think so.
It's day one, you move in.
If you enjoy what you just saw, we do new clips every single day, twice a day on the Clips channel. You see clips right here. And beside Dave's crotch, we have a full-length show every single Sunday, right by my hand.
Click right here.